Okay, cool. Hello, hello. Okay, so yeah, we'll give everybody like maybe 5 minutes or so to join up here. I do need to get a camera. That would be nice to have. I am curious while we're waiting for people to join, how many of you guys like have experience with update sets? How many of you have used them? How many of you know like what they are at all? Like that kind of thing. If you guys want to put that in the chat or speak up, either one. Callie says she's used them. Awesome. Not surprised.
I've used them to like capture all my data. Every time I get a story at work, we have to put like the name of the story and the like description of the update
Yeah.
to like make it organized stuff. So that's how I use them.
Okay. Yeah. Same here. Same here. Same. Use them daily. Use them to catch up data. Haven't had the chance to use them to unload data. Okay. Cool. Cool. So some people have used them, which is nice to see. I'm curious. So anybody that's in next gen or has been in next gen, or really any of like the learning sort of communities, do those communities or programs, do they use update sets? Like, do they teach them? Do they just tell you what they are, but they don't use them? I'm just kind of curious because I have a lot of next geners that are in my mentee group or that I'm helping, and a lot of times, like it seems to be kind of hit or miss, like if they've used them or not. Just out of next gen, they told us about it. That's all. Okay. Okay, cool. Just used update set in the labs. Okay. Callie teaches the loaner. Awesome. Love to see it. Callie teaching you guys, right? I think we just went over them and in a lab. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. I'm still getting over being sick, so if I mute, it's because I am totally coughing my lungs out. Yes, next gen update set was used during the vehicle app. Okay, cool. If you guys have used Catalog Builder, then you've used update sets just indirectly because Catalog Builder actually creates an update set automatically for you, which is kind of cool. Okay, so I guess I'll start here. I'm recording, so if anyone shows up late, we can always kind of give them the recording. So first, does it apply when we do? Yes, it does apply with catalog items, maintain items. So I'll give an kind of an intro for those of you guys that haven't met me. We'll kind of give an intro to what we're covering. Just going over my notes here, make sure I don't forget anything. So yeah, for those who haven't met me, my name's Nick. Kind of give you a background. So I graduated with a degree in computer science about a year and a half ago. While in school, I was an intern on a help desk for on and off for about 2 years. So I kind of have a computer science background. I kind of have an IT background. At my first job where I was an intern, I became a ServiceNow developer. I was really more of a kind of a ServiceNow admin, but I did develop and write some code here and there. Um, but that's kind of how I got into ServiceNow. Kind of my company was using it, obviously, and then I wanted to stay with the company. I wanted to write some code and build and be a developer. So I kind of fell into ServiceNow through that. I don't have any certs. I may be getting like my CSA, maybe my CAD eventually, but at the moment I don't have any certs. My current job, I'm a junior ServiceNow engineer, which kind of just a fancy word for developer in my opinion. But yeah, I've worked on a lot of different modules, HRSD, legal service delivery, of course, ITSM, a lot of core platform. I like to really explore the platform sort of from a technical side and really get kind of a deep understanding of the platform and how it works, which we might touch on a little bit today. Um, so that's kind of my intro. If you guys have any questions at all, please put them in the chat at any time. Obviously about update sets, but even if you just have a general question, feel free put it in the chat. I guess we can kind of do questions at the end, kind of do a Q&A. So what we'll be covering just really quickly, obviously update sets, kind of going over the structure of them, obviously what they are, but I want to kind of talk about sort of what they are from a deeper level. So really like the technical structure of them. Obviously, maybe not obviously to some of you, but they involve customer update records. They involve XML, so we'll talk briefly about that. And then sort of the reason for talking about update sets is not just because if you become a ServiceNow admin or developer, it's very high chance you're going to be using customer or update sets, I should say. But I think it's also really helpful for those of you that are just learning ServiceNow. So all of my mentees in my mentee group, I've got them on update sets early because not only are they useful, but not just for the reason you might think. So obviously, everyone probably knows they are used to move your work, so your changes from point A to point B. So from instance A to instance B, dev, test, prod. But also they're used to obviously record your changes. So, you might go look at update sets that are 3.5 years old because you're trying to debug a problem with something. So you might want to say who made this, what changes did they make, and update sets allow you to kind of view that on a really granular level, which is really useful when you're new and you're learning the platform because obviously like you have some idea, okay, I created this business rule, I updated this catalog item, but there's actually like really rich information that you can dive into in an update set in a customer update record, and you can go and look at like what's really happening in the sort of the bowels of the system and get like a lot of details into it. So yeah, that's why if anyone's kind of new to ServiceNow, I always tell them don't wait, don't say, oh, update sets, you just, I just move it from instance to instance. Like there's so much value that you can get out of it. Sorry, I'm not sharing my screen yet. That's a good question. I'm just reading my notes. So I'll share now if I can figure out how. Which looks like I can. Okay. So kind of start by you. So this is my PDI. I've got two PDIs actually. So everybody in my mentor group is we're all working on projects together and everyone's doing it sort of individually. So they all have their own PDIs. But what we're doing is we have actually two PDIs. Someone's got their mic on. I don't know if there's a question. I just heard myself, so I wasn't sure. So yeah, so this is actually something I recommend everybody do. If you don't mind kind of a little more overhead, having to deal with two PDIs can kind of be a pain, but we're kind of mimicking like a real environment in that we have a dev environment and then we have a test environment. And the only purpose of the test environment is to, when we're done with part of our project on our dev environment, which is where obviously we do all the work, all the development, is we move it over to our test environment. So we learn, how to use update sets, how to troubleshoot update sets, because it's actually a little bit more complicated than you might think. You can run into a lot of issues, especially when you're working like with cross-scope applications, or even not, even if you're just working in a really simple, like all you're doing like simple working global, it can get really complicated. So it's definitely good to kind of have this skill and have it to talk about in interviews, and to say like, hey, I instead of just saying, yeah, I know what, instead of just saying like, I know what update sets are in an interview. So was that a question or was that just someone's feedback? Probably the latter. So continue. Yeah. So if you're in an interview, instead of just saying, hey, I know what an update set is, you move data, you might not really impress an interviewer, but if you can speak to, yeah, an update set is a collection of customer update records and it contains XML, and I've actually used that in a project and so on and so forth. Um, Really valuable kind of skill and something to bring up and kind of show you that you have that underlying knowledge of the platform. Um, so yeah, without further ado, I created a really simple example one. Um, so you guys probably know kind of what update sets look like. Obviously, this is an update set right here in my dev instance. So I created this really simple catalog item called equipment request, just to kind of demo this. A little pro tip, if you look at the URL, you guys might have to squint, but if you look at the URL, you can see the table name. So update sets, I believe this is a local update set. Let me just verify that. Yeah, local update sets. You can look up at the URL and you'll see sys underscore update underscore set. And the first thing I kind of always explain to my mentees gets at sort of the underlying relational database kind of model that ServiceNow is very heavily based on. So it's really, really good to understand like the difference between a record, so like everything up here, like name, state, parent, and then the related list. So in an update set, the sys update set record is just sort of the metadata, and that is like data about data. So this just contains the name of the update set and the state and created and et cetera. And the customer updates, and maybe this is obvious for some of you, maybe not for others, but customer updates, if I show technical names here, is actually a separate table. So anytime you have a related list, you're going to have, it's going to be records in another table. So we actually have sys update XML, and that actually stores all the customer updates. And customer update meaning obviously like you're a customer of ServiceNow. This is an update you've made as a customer on the instance, so customizations, etc. And some of you probably already know that only certain records or certain changes are stored in an update set. So data, I believe it's data that isn't. So for example, if you leave a work note on a field, that's data, right? That's not going to be stored in an update set. If you create a new incident record, that's data. But if you create a business rule, that's an actual customer update. And you can tell if something will be stored in an update set because it will. I believe it's the sys application. I have to double check that. But there's a table that every a table would extend if it's involved or if it's captured in an update set. But very important to know that certain records won't be captured in an update set. So like, for example, sys user group, if you create a new group, will not be captured in an update set. So you would have to manually export it into your test instance, or you would have to manually add it to your update set. I believe there's like a third-party tool that allows you to do that. So fun fact there. But expanding on the customer updates, this is kind of where a lot of that really, really good information is. So I recommend that everybody, when you're developing in your PDIs, even if you're not going to do the whole like 2 instance thing, still create an update set for each sort of project or whatever you're doing. Because for one, it's really nice because you can back it out and undo changes that you've made, which is really, really valuable. And you can kind of get an insight into how backing out works and how to properly do that. But what's really, really useful, where a lot of the value comes in, is you can pull up the chat here, make sure Zoom's not. Sorry, I just see a chat. I have my PDI in dark mode too. Yeah. Little pro tip, if you do use 2 instances, make your dev instance dark mode and then your production or your test instance light mode, and then you'll get like totally flash banged if you switch to your test, and then you'll never mistake that. Little pro tip there. But yeah, so I got distracted there, but this is where the value of update sets comes in when you're learning, because every update that's captured in an update set that you make is going to show up here in these customer updates. Um, and there's a wealth of information. So for example, in here, I've created a catalog item. I've created a variable, created two question choices on said variable, and then I've created a catalog client script. So I just did a few things here to kind of show you guys. Um, but this is actually really valuable because you can figure out kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So for example, when you create or update a catalog item, the system actually automatically adds a customer update to your update set. So you can say this one here was not created by me, but it was created by the system, which you'll kind of see like certain I guess I'll call them oddities like that that'll happen that you wouldn't really expect. So like if you create one record, there might be downstream effects where another record is updated and that'll show up in your update set. So I tell my mentees like as you're working on a project every so often, um, refresh your update set, go and look at it and just kind of see what's going on with what's being created. And to expand on that, if we go, I'm going to open up this catalog client script customer update in a new tab. So there's a lot of stuff kind of going on here. First thing you'll notice is the name. So every customer update has a name, which you can pull out and customize the list here. But every name in an update set is always going to be, to my knowledge, always going to be the name of the table. So catalog client script is the actual table that holds all of our client scripts. And then an underscore and the sys of the specific client script. So there's also this related list down at the bottom left where you can say, you can click on, what's it say, show related record, and that'll actually bring you to the client script itself. So I can do that. And you can kind of start to see where the value comes in here. So if you're debugging an update set, you don't remember like what the heck this update you made was, go in your update set, click into the customer update, click on that related list UI action, and it'll bring you to that actual record. And then another pro tip is you can also use SNUtils. I think that I don't know if that shows up on the Zoom, but I'm using SNUtils if you guys can't see the slash commands, and you can open a record given its sys. So if you ever, beautiful, thanks, Kelly. If you guys ever see a sys and you're like, I don't know what that sys is, pro tip, slash sys space and the sys and you can actually just paste it in there directly without even typing sys like so, and it'll bring you to that record. Just a really nice little pro tip there. So to expand on the customer update, you have the payload field, which is also like incredibly useful. So the payload, of course, is an XML payload, extensible markup language. It's sort of like a data representation of the, yeah, actually I can make my screen bigger. How's that? I'm sure that's better, but yeah, so no problem. The XML payload is sort of, yeah, how records are sort of stored in ServiceNow. So if you ever click show XML on a record, you can see sort of like all the fields in that record. So XML payload and a customer update is very similar. Way better, glad that's better. It's very similar. This is different than what you'd see in a record because this is a customer update. So this is like the recording of the change. So as you can see here, the underlying tags are, kind of make that clear for you guys, record update. So this is a little bit different. But what you can do, I think this is a ServiceNow utils functionality, but you can hit format and it'll kind of show you this record update in a more readable format here. But a lot of this is sometimes it's kind of nonsense. Like I don't even know what sys es latest script is. Someone could look into that and tell me, and I appreciate it. But you can come in here and kind of see what's going on. So we'll see, okay, updated by me, of course, when it was updated. This is an onload client script. UI type is 10, whatever that turns out to be. So yeah, there's just a wealth of data. We can even see the script in plain text here too. Of course, it's just an empty function, but um, we can see this is the catalog item equipment request. Here's the sys ID of that equipment request. So you can imagine if you're troubleshooting or you're just trying to learn more about the platform, like dive into some of these XML payloads and you'll learn a ton of stuff. So super, super useful. I will also shout out the fact that there's this update set field on every customer update. So again, this is sys update XML. It's the actual customer update itself. And here's the update set that it's in, of course. You can actually change this. So if I were to go to, I think someone's got their mic unmuted. If I were to go to this catalog item here, this is part of our project, just a quick demo for you guys. If I were to, um, let's say, change this variable, that update is now going to be in my update set. So if I refresh customer updates here, I'm expecting it to increase. Interestingly, it actually increases by 2 because of the same thing I mentioned earlier, um, where this catalog item is put into the update set by the system. And then here's me actually changing the variable. So again, going back to like learning about the system, and again, with relational databases, every time you update catalog item variable, you'll see that variables are actually stored in a different table. Um, so that's why there's actually 2 updates. And if I go to that update record, again, if we look at the name field, we'll see, okay, type variable. Here's the target name. That's the variable that I changed. We'll see item option new. So if you're new and you're like, what the heck is item option new? Well, you can go and you can Google that or type this in, go and actually look at this table and you'll see item option new. That's actually where variable definitions are stored. And if you look in the payload, we'll see all the fields for said variable. We see help text, we see hidden, include none, and all their values. So super, super, super useful. And then what I was going to kind of demo too is if you guys go and you're like, okay, I accidentally made a change in my update set. Well, again, everything in ServiceNow is a record and table. So you can just go to the customer update right here and we can change it. We can manually change the update set that this customer update's a part of. Thanks, whoever muted them. So yeah, so you just have to be very, very careful when you are changing this. Got to make sure you know what you're doing. For example, if you were only to change this variable here out of the update set, but you left this catalog item onboarding in your update set, and then you move this update set into test and then into production. I'm actually not sure if that would have like how to like what that would really do, but you could see where you got to be kind of careful with update sets. You don't want to be moving changes that you didn't mean to, and so on. But I'll show you guys an example. We will go ahead and we can just change this update set to the default update set, which means it won't be captured. It won't be moved into test and production. So we'll save that. We'll go back to our update set and we refresh. We're going to expect to see that disappear. And now it's out of our update set. And similarly, if we actually go to the customer updates table, because again, everything is a table in ServiceNow. We open up the customer update table, we will see every single customer update in our instance. So I have only 430 in this PDI. If you're, in your first ServiceNow job and you're like, show me what you got, you can head into the customer update table, see, what's been changed, when it's been changed, who's been changing it, etc. So this table here is every single customer update. You can actually pull, I think I had to pull this column out, this update set column, but you can go and see like, hey, here's the update set that each one belongs to. Click through. Obviously, I've been working on onboarding part of our project. But notably, this is really useful. I'll zoom out a little bit. This is really useful because if you accidentally capture like 32 updates in your update set, instead of having to go one by one, you can go here and do the trick where you control select and you can bulk update. So you could update all of these customer updates, move them into default, move them into another update set if it was by mistake or you wanted to move changes into like a separate update set. Um, yeah, if anyone has questions so far, I know it's kind of been a lot, definitely put it in the chat, either related to what I've talked about so far or just general questions. You don't have to wait till the end. Um, so the next thing to talk about here is to clarify a common kind of misconception I see with update sets. As far as like what a customer update is, a customer update is just a record of your change. So ServiceNow uses it when we move this update set into test and then commit the update set. They use it to apply those changes, but it's really important to know, to understand that each one of these customer updates here in my update set, this isn't the change itself. So for example, if I was like, okay, I want to undo these changes, let me go ahead and select these changes, catalog item, client script, and then go ahead and delete these. Um, they even give you a little warning here, removes the record of a change. Customization may be overwritten. Are you sure? So you want to make sure, pretty much as far as I know, there's never actually a real use case to delete a customer update. You would just move it to default or move it or back it out or something like that. But again, this is the record of a change, not the change itself. So if I delete these three records, the catalog script is still going to be there. The question choice is still going to be there. The changes are still going to be there. I deleted it. So now I no longer have a record of the change. So if you guys remember one thing from this, it's that pretty much you should never delete a customer update. Just kind of goes back to, and an update set itself probably is also not the greatest idea because if you delete it, then you have no way of actually backing it out. You have no record of the changes being made. So that's a good little shout out. So let's see. I think what we can do, we are all just tenants of the platform. Yeah, you want to be a good tenant of your platform. So we talked about XML a little bit, how to export data not captured, tips and tricks, kind of talked about. So yeah, I'll open it for questions. If anyone wanted to unmute and ask any questions or otherwise put them in the chat. And give you guys a moment to think it over. Sarika says, can you show us if preview issue comes in test instance with example and how to resolve it? Yeah, that's an excellent question. I could try to get one of those issues to show up. Essentially what that is, oh my God, putting check marks on the screen is hilarious. Essentially what that is when you go to apply an update set, there can be errors that occur. And I think a common one is like a newer update exists in test than you're applying from dev. Uh, Another common one is like you're attempting to apply an update to a record that doesn't exist in the newer instance. So a lot of those, it's trial and error, it's troubleshooting, and say, okay, actually reading what it's telling you. If it tells you this record doesn't exist, like, okay, go grab the sys ID of that record, go see what it looks like in dev, go see what it looks like in test. You'll see, okay, this record exists in dev, but it doesn't exist in test. And then it's kind of understanding if it's actually going to be a problem or not. So a lot of what I see like in our environment at work is like, hey, it's warning us. We have six warnings that this flow variable, or rather this flow category doesn't exist. It exists in dev, but not in test. And we're just going to say, okay, we don't care about the category. We're going to apply the changes anyway. Sometimes it gets more complicated and it might say, this table column doesn't exist, but it should exist. We're expecting it to exist. Turns out, someone didn't move their change in when we expected them to. So yeah, really quick, we'll try to show that as an example, Sarika. In my test instance here, preview issues, what I was thinking, yeah, how to resolve it. Yeah, there's no like one way to resolve it. A lot of times there's options like apply updates anyway or skip these updates. And you have to go line by line on each update and say, hey, should this actually be skipped? Should it be applied? Is this actually going to cause an issue? And sometimes I've seen it in a real environment where we have to not commit a certain update set, and we have to go back into dev and fix it and all that. John says, can you use GitHub to track changes? And if so, what's the advantage of using update sets over GitHub? Yeah, so I've only had the pleasure of using update sets. So I know for a fact with scoped, I think it's either is it custom apps or I believe it's custom applications. If you're working like with a custom app, ServiceNow has support to use GitHub solely for that. There's also some other there's an alternative where I've heard of teams not even using update sets at all. They make everything like a custom app or a scope or I can't speak to it intelligently, but there are some other ways to actually move updates, but update sets are the most common. Um, but to answer your question, yeah, you can use GitHub, and it hasn't been like fully moved into like ServiceNow as a whole. Like there's some things where you will have to use update sets to my knowledge. Hopefully ServiceNow does eventually move to GitHub, kind of roll it out more to the wider platform would be really nice to see. Git is a version control software. Of course, most of you probably heard of it or used it. It's super powerful. But yeah, as far as advantage, I suppose there's pros and cons. I mean, the biggest advantage is that in a lot of scenarios, you can't, to my knowledge, use GitHub. At both of my jobs, we've used update sets because we work mostly with the core platform. We don't really do too many custom apps from in my experience. So we've kind of just had to use update sets. So it's kind of ServiceNow's own, kind of own system. But yeah, you can definitely use GitHub. I use GitHub just for version control of my own, like I keep like ServiceNow scripts and script includes, just because I like to keep it in another spot. It's another layer of protection, so I don't lose them, and I like to keep my Git skills sharp. So yeah, let's try. So here is, won't go too deep into this, but my mentees, my mentorship group here, we've set up like a remote instance. So this is a very popular way to pull instances in between. I'm sorry, pull update sets in between instances, sort of like a REST integration where you send information between instances. I'm not even sure that might even be how it works under the hood. But yeah, this is a little complex. Don't worry too much about kind of understanding like how all this works, but this isn't too difficult to set up. So if there's interest, I can maybe like write up a quick, I'm sure there's plenty of tutorials on how to set this up. Essentially, you just create a new remote instance record in the instance that you want to pull the data into. And of course, the remote instance is where you're pulling it from. So we're pulling it from dev, type development. It authenticates using just a user account. So I've created one called admin service account just to kind of mimic a real environment. You wouldn't use like your real account. Obviously, you'd use like a service account, I believe they're called. But that account needs to be able to leave an admin. You literally just give it the URL of your instance. So this is my dev PDI. And then it's literally that easy to set up. And then you can do a little test. So it says, okay, it's warning me that they're on different versions slightly, which is fine. But when you're ready to move updates, what you would do is in the instance where your update set is, you would move it to a state of complete. So anything in complete will be pulled in. Quick note on states, really important to understand that in progress does not mean it's actually your current update set. So for example, if I set this back to in progress, which ServiceNow actually recommends against doing, but I've done a few times, but it's actually not my current one. So my current one's back to default. Very important to keep an eye on that. But we'll set it back to complete. And we'll hit retrieve. You see it says retrieve completed. So it's going to attempt to find any completed update sets in dev. It's going to do a whole lot of fun stuff. Looks like I have 5. So a bunch of them. This is one I downloaded from the internet. And a bunch of these are my project. So you'll see once it's pulled in, it is a retrieved update set, which is in its own table. You'll see retrieved update sets here in the top left. Sorry, guys, I'll zoom in again. You guys can yell at me if I forget to do that again. But so here's the one, here's the demo one. You see it's previewed. So it's on the instance, the update set, the data is here, but it's not actually committed. And that's actually really lucky. There's actually an error, which is funny because it's such a simple update set. That's actually really nice because we can kind of demo that. But you'll see the source is dev. 5 records were inserted. 1 of them is updated for a total of 6. At this stage, you would come over to this customer updates. You're going to see the name. Make sure this all looks good. You can pull out, like we can pull out created and created by. You'd want to make sure, like, you didn't accidentally pull in something that's unrelated. So here's my question choices, my catalog item. And I actually did pull in something unrelated. So that could be why this is broken because I forgot to move this onboarding out of this update set, which is bad, but we'll go ahead and take a look at this error. So here is a nice example. We have a preview problem. Sometimes you'll have multiple. There's only 1 here, but sometimes you'll have like 15, which would be kind of a pain. But again, this is a record in a table, so we can open up the record itself. We can see we have available actions. You see a description. We see the type. Sometimes it's just a warning. Sometimes it's actually an error like this one. Interestingly, this is one I've seen before. Cannot find a record in SysHub Flow for column flow designer flow.
And Tommy Mottola is a devil.
And
I'm not supposed to say what I'm going to say right now, but I have to let you in on a secret. Science. Please don't videotape what I'm going to say, okay?
Someone's letting us in on a
because
secret.
The companies take advantage of them. They really do. And
Somebody is not mute. Deidre, I think that's you.
There we go. Thanks. Okay, yeah, thanks. So I'm easily distracted. So yeah, we'll see. Again, you'll see that remote update. Same exact formatting here. So we see, okay, this is on the SCCat item table, and we see the sys ID. So if I wanted to look more into this, I can grab that sys ID. Oh, that's not the sys ID. I want the sys ID from the remote update, which is on the right here. And then I'm going to use SNUtils to look that up. So again, another example where you guys can kind of get into the nitty gritty here with the update sets. And we see that as I kind of suspected, the problem here is the onboarding catalog. So I believe I have changes in here that I haven't moved into test yet, but then it's trying to move this onboarding item into test. So that's why it's giving me an error. So you'll have actions, for example, find missing record. Honestly, I've never used that. Find missing update is another one I haven't used, but again, it's ways to kind of reconcile the problem. Accept remote update is just saying, okay, just commit it, just send it. So sometimes that's what you would actually do if you would trust that what it's telling you doesn't matter. And then in skip remote update, do not commit the remote update. So this specific update, it will not be committed. And the way this works is that you have to reconcile all these problems. And then once you do that, it'll allow you to actually commit it. So of course, the correct answer here is because we don't want to move this in yet. It's not ready. We can go ahead and skip it. And also we can really read into what it's actually telling us. It could not find a record in syshub flow. That's the flow table. Flow designer flow is a specific column. So it looks like the flow in dev is a newer version than the flow in test is my understanding of what this is telling us. But this is the error that you would go in Google and go kind of figure out like what is actually happening. But we're going to go ahead and skip it. Show you guys what that looks like. All problems have been addressed. Click update, commit updates to continue. Of course, it brought us back out here, which is kind of annoying. But if we go back to retrieved, should be able to go right back. Beautiful. And now the commit update set UI action, the button here is ready. Interestingly, let's see, there's 6. It's still listed in here. So honestly, I didn't really expect that. I expected it to not list that. But let's just see what happens, I guess. Go ahead and commit it. So obviously committing it is what actually applies the changes. So now that's live. And even though we committed the change, we're not done with the update set. We can go, now that we've committed it, it's going to become a local update set, which means it's on our local instance. So if I type local update sets, we'll see it here, Nick, equipment request catalog. And 2 things you can do here with your completed update sets. You can go ahead and back them out, obviously, if you wanted to undo these changes. Somewhat risky when you back out an update set. I've heard some horror stories of like records being skipped. So you don't want to do it willy-nilly in a live environment, but it can definitely save your butt if you move something into production and it's broken because you didn't test it, or there's something in production that was slightly different than your test environment. So you want to make sure that you know kind of how to back out. It'll tell you validate, check for problems. If no problems are found, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, tells you right here, cannot be undone. So kind of scary. So it's very useful to have a little experience backing out update sets and working with them in general before you're moving your first change into production in your new fancy developer role, because it's kind of scary. And then like I mentioned originally, another really great thing about update sets is just using them to figure out kind of what happened. So you might have a 6-year-old ServiceNow instance, you're troubleshooting a bug from 5.5 years ago, and you want to come back and look at the update sets from 5 years ago, and you can go and see, here's the updates they made. You can go in and say, okay, on whatever date, on October 17th, Nick made a change to this catalog client script. And you can do a lot of really nice things. Like I think this is, I believe this is an out of the box feature. I think SMU Tools kind of enhances this, but you can see, you can compare what changes were actually made. And of course, it says there's no differences because this was a new catalog client script that I moved into test. But if this was an update to an existing catalog client script, this is how you can come in and see, okay, here's the version of the script before it was changed. And here's the version of the script on the right after it was changed. And I will tell you that that is extremely valuable when you're debugging. And furthermore, you can go and actually see like who made that change and prove to your boss, say, hey, you know, that update, that script that broke that I wrote, actually somebody else mistakenly updated that and deleted a line of code, and that's why production's broken. It's not my fault. Speaking from experience, it's a nice skill to have. So yeah, there's a few other things I didn't go into, but in sake of time, I'll open it up for questions. There's some other concepts you guys can look into if you're interested. Obviously, parent update sets are very helpful. You can have a parent with a bunch of children. A child update set can have its own children. Merging update sets is another very helpful tool. So here's the merge screen. You filter down what you want to merge and it puts them into one update set. I will note that if you guys go ahead and play around with update sets, make sure that if you move an update set into test, for example, this one is the one I just moved into test. It's now complete. Very common mistake, something I did at my first job and broke one of our environments. But it's the act of changing this back to in progress. I mentioned earlier, it's really not best practice unless you really know what you're doing, and even then wouldn't recommend it. But common mistake is you'll go and say, okay, I actually need to make another change to this catalog. Let me go set this in progress, go make my change, set it back to complete, and then move it back into test, and then commit over this existing one in test. And that's actually a really bad idea. I can't really speak to the exact specifics of it because you'd think like it would work like Git, where it would just apply the changes that are different, but it actually doesn't, and it can break things, speaking from very painful experience. So when you're using update sets, make sure you guys are following the best practices. And the best practice is actually to create a brand new update set just for your change. So like at work all the time, almost every day, if I'm working on a story, I'll say fix number 1, and I'll say, okay, fix number 2, fix number 3, and I'll have like 4 update sets in test. I'll make them a child of the of my main update set. You see, here's actually an example. Fixes number 1, and then you can merge them together once they're actually in your test environment. But yeah, if you guys do play around with update sets, super interested to hear about it. And if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out in the Discord. If you run into any interesting problems, or just any questions at all, I'm always here for you guys. But yeah, I think that's really all I had. I mean, I can definitely talk for a lot longer about update sets and ServiceNow, but for the sake of time, I'll refrain for now. But yeah, any questions, put in the chat now, or if you want to unmute or comments, if anyone wants to share like experiences that they have. I know some of you said you've used update sets, so I'd be really curious to hear about like tips and tricks and anything like that. Callie says this was great. Glad you enjoyed it, Callie. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe, maybe not. You're only Nick on the Discord. I don't think I'm the only Nick, but my name says mentor, mentor Nick. I'm the little sheep guy on there. Literally amazing. I'm glad you think. Great session. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I'll update the recording. I'll probably just put it on YouTube, or I don't know how it works with Zoom, so we'll see how it goes. Thanks, Mo. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see that you're here. Yeah, we have time. If anyone has any questions, wider than just update sets about the platform or learning the platform, or career questions or anything that you guys want to ask, it's a good time. I mean, Callie's here. I think some of the other mentors might be here. Mo's here. Yeah, the recording will definitely be shared. You're very welcome. No one wants to speak up, and someone has a question. Go ahead and you speak up or put the question in the chat if you'd like. But
okay, yeah, I'll speak up. Yeah,
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. So I have a question. We had a loaner vehicle request inventory that was created the last time we had application development training with Kali. So I got involved in a discussion with another colleague that we're working together on the app. So the question is, when creating the app, I noticed that the system automatically actually creates an update set a default update set. Okay. And from what my colleague told me, she said, we're supposed to create our own apart from the default update set, so that we don't lose the one that is the default update set. So I wanted to understand, when a system create a default update set, are we expected to also create another one? What's the purpose of creating another one and the likes? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, I didn't even touch on the default update sets. So a default update set is, how do you explain a default update set? You'll see there's a ton here on my PDI for every scope. So every scope has a default update set, hence the word default. And that's where like everything, if it's not specifically captured in another update set, it's just going to be put in a default update set, or in the default update set for said scope. So in a real environment, I mean, like there's probably thousands and thousands of customer updates in our default update set. So it's essentially like I like to think of it as no man's land. Rayanne, that's a great point. She says default update sets are created by the system in the global scope. Yeah, it's created by the system, and this, to my way of thinking about it, is like this is no man's land. This is where everything goes, because a customer update has to exist, to my knowledge, has to exist in update set. You wouldn't want it just floating around in the sys update set table. That wouldn't make much sense, or the sys update XML table, I should say. So yeah, if you ever see that you're in the default and you're in like your real world like dev environment, my immediate reaction is to freak out and hope I didn't actually do a bunch of development, because there's thousands of update sets getting plopped into here. So sometimes I'll even go into my like dev environment at my job, and I'll look through default and make sure I didn't make any changes that I didn't mean to. But yeah, so default is like, I don't even think it's possible to move the default update set between instances. I think if you tried, it would make the instance explode. So yeah, unless an application scope, then a default set will be created in an application scope of which you were in. Yeah, great point. So if you go again if I go again to update sets here, we'll see like each scope has its own default, and that's where changes in that scope are recorded. Captures everything exactly. Best practices would be to create a specific update set for both global scope and the application scope. That way you can ensure you capture all updates. Yeah, really well said. Thank you for that little tidbit there. It's like when you're cheating off your friend on a test.
I don't know if I can come in so that I can understand better. I mean, maybe let me just add this. What we did was we created a custom scope. We weren't working on global scope. It was custom scope that was created. So of course, with the custom scope, we found out that the system automatically also create that default update set. So for us to creating custom scope, are we also supposed to have create our own default? I mean, our own update sets. We shouldn't work on the we shouldn't depend on the default update set when creating the scope, custom scope. I hope you got my question.
So if you're making changes in a scope, like let's say human resources core for HRSD, the default is always going to be there. Just the system creates it. And then, yeah, if you're making changes that you want to capture and move between instances, or you just want to capture them for recording purposes, even if you're just testing, then yeah, you always want to create your own update set in each scope that you're working in. Now you said like if you create, create application. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding it, but when you say create application
scope, custom.
Can I add something, Nick?
Yeah, 100%, please.
If somebody can help me too. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Callie, please take it away.
I was just going to say, because she's talking about in regards to the application development project, usually in the workplace, you'll make an update set for each individual story that you have, because there's going to be multiple people working on different stories. But with in the project, you only created one to capture all of your changes that you made during sprint 1 through sprint 3. The default update set, whenever you create a new application, that's going to be created by the system, but it's not one that you're supposed to be using. You're supposed to go ahead and create another one. So don't rely on the default update set ever. Go ahead.
Right, yeah.
A new update set specific to either the story that you're working on, if you're in the workplace, or like if you're just building a project, you might just want to capture all, just use one update set because you don't need multiple because you're not in a enterprise setting. You see what I'm saying? So that one update set that you create then house all of the changes you make within the application, whether it's global or scope.
Thank you. Appreciate. I think this makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kelly. That was way better than I could have explained it. Very well spoken there.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by, Jeansley. Appreciate you. Yeah, so
Can I ask a question?
of course, yeah, go ahead.
This is Cheryl. Thank you for this presentation. I'm just gonna also just comment on what Bola said. So just if someone does accidentally create, saved everything, I made a mistake and put everything into the default, and they did not create an individual customized update set, would the best thing to do would be to clone that one and then would it be to clone it and then what would be
the clone will have everything in it.
Clone everything in it?
So from my experience, so I think I briefly showed this earlier, but so what you're saying is basically you made a bunch of updates, and those updates are all stored as customer updates, which is this table here, sys_update_XML. So I've done this before where you're fine, fun. So I was in like a different scope, and I made like 15 updates and didn't realize that I was in the default update set.
Correct.
So
that's what something.
Yeah. So what you can do is and again, it's important that you can know what you're doing and make sure you do this correctly. But if you go to this here table, customer updates, sys update XML, this is every customer update in the instance. And you can actually just, in this list view, you can change what update set it's in. So if I filter by default, I can then filter by created by me. So these are all the changes created by me in this PDI that are in default. It'd be very important that you correctly identify so you don't miss any, but like, let's say I've identified that these 3 that are all called test, these should have been in my update set. I could then create a new empty update set and just go ahead and change which one it's in just by this update set column here. And you can do the little trick where you control drag and then update multiple. So I've done this a lot before, where I would go and then I would find my new update set. Maybe it's called Teams integration, and then I could go ahead and just change what update set that's in. So you can go ahead and manipulate all of this. Now, if you caught it like after doing 3 days of dev work and you're working between like 3 different update sets or 3 different scopes, and it's really complex, you might be really in a pickle, to be honest. But yeah, so you can definitely move your actual customer updates into different update sets, which is very, very good to know.
Okay. And my second question is, what if you you closed out one of the update sets and you're trying to back it up to GitHub, this is a real situation. This is my situation.
Okay.
I was trying to back up my update set into GitHub, but I think I did a practice exercise and I closed out I closed out a line item and it had the same name as the update set. So when I'm going to like, so I already moved it. I already like say I moved it out to like a remote update. I moved it to a remote area, but it's
Okay.
still reading it in the system as it's still there, and it won't allow me to update. It won't allow me to update to GitHub.
Okay. So my first thought is that might be some sort of like, was this a GitHub like something in the platform that allowed you to move your changes to GitHub? Or were you manually like uploading something to GitHub?
Doing it the way it says manually, I guess the way it's suggested to go through Studio and link it that way.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so Studio, I believe, has its I've actually never used Studio, but I believe that's like you can move studio changes to GitHub. So I would ask you to ping me in the channel or DM me, and I can take a
Mhm.
look at that. Or someone like Callie or someone else might be able to speak to it better, to be honest.
Okay.
Just because I've never used that GitHub integration with ServiceNow.
Okay.
But yeah, GitHub is very, very powerful. So there's definitely a way to go ahead and like create a new GitHub branch, or there's definitely a way to kind of reconcile that issue. Um, it may be of varying complexity. Sometimes Git can get very complex, but yeah, ultimately update sets are just really XML, like we talked about. So there's almost always a way to if you've made a mistake to that's kind of half of the point is to revert to a new version, an old version, or otherwise fix the problem.
The item that was contained was transferred into an XML. So even if I try to go back into the actual item, the line item, it's like you can't even see it because it's already been transferred out. But for some reason, the system is still catching it and it's reading as if it's still there. So that's why I'm confused as to why
Okay.
it's not being read as it's gone. So I don't know. I can't figure it out, but I know it's stopping me from backing it up.
Okay. Yeah, it can definitely be a pain in the butt, to be honest. I'm curious to look at that though and kind of see.
Okay. I
So
will ping you.
yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we can take a look at it and we can kind of share with the group if we find a solution. But cool. Cool. Good question. Um, Hamana. So if I scroll up, Sarika just had to leave. Thanks for joining, but they did ask a question. Each sprint, we need to create new update set. Really, it's down to answer that question. It's down to your team, your development team, and how they do it. Theoretically, uh, you could put an entire sprint into one update set and have a massive update set, and it would be unwieldy. And if you had to back it out, you would have to back out all of it. So best practice is to keep update sets relatively small. For me at work, each story will be one update set unless it's a really big story. Then I might have like one for the catalog item and a flow, and I might have a child update set where I created a custom table or XYZ. And that way, if I need to back out just one part of that, I can back out the like a child update set instead of having to back it all out. Essentially, you can think of update sets like folders on your desktop. They all contain files. So if you have to go in production and delete a folder, it's better if you have three folders that all have a grouping of files and not like one big folder with a ton of files. Like if you have to find something in that massive file, it's going to be really hard. So there might be best practices and every team's different. Some teams are really, really strict. Some teams are kind of go just totally wing it when it comes to update sets. But generally, yeah, it's a good idea to keep them kind of smaller. So long answer, but good question there. Hopefully they can watch the recording to hear that answer. They also asked if preview issue comes, what is best practice to resolve that issue? Again, anytime you're troubleshooting an issue, it's understanding truly the real issue and what's actually going on. Sometimes there's not even an issue, and ServiceNow is just detecting something just to be on the safe side. Maybe they're giving you a warning and you can safely ignore it. Other times there's a very, very pressing issue and you shouldn't even commit that update set at all. So that just goes kind of towards those like the troubleshooting, thinking like a developer, figuring out what the error is actually telling you. Sometimes those get very complex, so sometimes you have to pick that up to your senior engineer and say, hey, like, can you help me? This is crazy. Definitely speaking from experience, that can get really complex. Anytime you're working with a version control, if you have one record in there that you're moving in by mistake, that could bring down your production instance. I mean, it could break everything. It's a little dramatic, but yeah, you got to be very careful with update sets. Always reach out to dev lead. Yeah, update sets are one of the areas of the platform where it's definitely not something where you want to wing it. Like when you're programming in your test environment, okay, let's see what happens. It's a test environment, but when you're moving an update set in, you want to be kind of on your let's confirm what's about to happen game. Let's test it really well. Let's this is definitely a danger area. That's why they give you big scary red messages when you're about to commit. JSTN says need to drop. I will say at my company, there's a big focus on naming standards. Absolutely. Because again, these update sets that you're creating, they might be around for 11, 12 years. So good naming standards so they can be found. An update set in some form is a basic form of documentation. There are description fields in update sets, and even in a specific customer update, like this singular customer update actually has a comments field. I'll be honest, I've never used it myself, but you could literally leave a comment here. So yeah, that's a great point, is naming conventions. Again, it's kind of fun to think someone in 6 years from now might be trouble. It might be you at the same company in 6 years and you're troubleshooting. You're not going to remember what the heck you did 6 years ago. So naming conventions are important. Yeah, that was a great call out. Forgot I can mute people. I just figured out I have this power. All right, yeah. Any other questions? Like I said, even outside of update sets, if anybody has questions, it's a good time. I know we're going to be doing a mentorship session. I think that's next week on Thursday, or don't quote me on that, but we're going to be doing a more general mentorship group. Sure, Mo will have some good CSA sessions up for you guys too. But yeah, again, hopefully I've inspired you guys. Go create some update sets in your instances and your PDIs. Play around with them.
All right, have a good night. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Nick.
Anytime. I'll stick around if I see any stragglers asking questions. As soon as the video is loaded, I'll let you know as soon as the video is loaded. Okay, cool. That'd be awesome to have it on the tutorial site. You are welcome. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Nick.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Nava. I just joined in the class, but this is my first time where I have through LinkedIn. I got this Zoom link. So I'm eager to know. I'm currently working as a ServiceNow developer, but I have CSS certification and I'm planning to do CAD certification.
Okay.
So I'm new to ServiceNow, so I want to know what these classes are going on, how exactly it will be helpful for my career path. So I didn't know about these classes prior.
Yeah, definitely. So this is really like a learning session. So really, we are kind of meeting up. I don't know what the cadence is going to look like going forward. This is my first one actually hosting on the server, but yeah, we just have learning sessions. We have CSA study sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of just kind of sharing knowledge. Sometimes we like work together in a
Oh,
PDI. But yeah, the group is really like based around people breaking into tech, breaking into ServiceNow, building up like a ServiceNow portfolio, professional development, that sort of thing. So we've got a lot of like ServiceNow next gen graduates, people studying for their CSA, people trying to grow on the platform.
okay, got it. How could I get this class link for future classes, and what could be the timings for future classes? Is there any specific time schedule, and is
Yeah,
there any specific group to share this class link?
yeah. So are you in the Discord, the Callie's Discord?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's most of everything's going to be shared there. I know there, I believe there's a Twitter. Callie has actually just launched a website. So that website link, hopefully someone can share that.
Uh-huh.
But that's in the Discord too. And yeah, just keeping an eye on the events in the Discord and the announcements will be a good bet. But yeah, some of them are kind of sporadic.
Yeah,
But
but
there's a few.
I see that there are a lot of chat is going on these groups. So it
Yeah.
I may miss the link, a class link, if we got in that group of people. So is there any specific source other than the chat group to get this link? Or we can join regularly, frequently,
Yeah,
any specific time?
if you look at the Discord, at the top left,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see events. It says 3 events, and you'll see like the dates, and it shows it to you in your local time zone too, so you don't have to like convert that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all in the Discord. Yeah, Mary, thanks, Mary. She just put the URL for the new website that they launched in the Zoom
Okay.
chat.
Can
So
see the
yeah,
event details.
yeah, bookmark that, and that'll be helpful for you too.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Nick.
I need to go get like a burger and
Uh,
fries now. That
I may
talking
get
made me
to,
hungry.
sorry, I may get to join next class. Is there any class on tomorrow?
I don't think so. The next one is Tuesday, October 22nd at 6 p.m. CST. And
Okay.
it's just a service on mentoring event. So there's going to be resume review, interview prep, next steps in your journey, resource allocation. I'm just reading
Okay.
off the list.
Usually, in a week, how many days this class will go on?
I
Like
can't.
once a
I
month?
couldn't really tell you. So it's Callie's group, but I think we're kind of ramping it up. I'm going to be hosting a few here and there. It's somewhat sporadic. We
Oh,
don't have like a set day or anything.
okay. Okay.
But
Thank you.
yeah, love
Yeah.
to have you there, man.
Yeah.
How long have you been a ServiceNow developer?
Yeah. Like 4 years.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, you've got me beat, so you could be teaching me some stuff.
Yeah, but I'm looking for to learn new skill set to upgrade my skill set. So I'm
Yeah, definitely.
currently mostly concentrating on CMDB and discovery. I'm looking for the best source and best platform to learn those on CMDB and discovery.
Okay. Yeah, that's a here. I'm gonna stop the recording actually.